Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, there's a breeze. The nation celebrates as the heat gets moved about by a little waft of air. It's lovely. What a country we live in, Kieran, eh?
Yeah, I managed to miss it because I've been in New York for the last couple of days, and when I was telling my class that it was a record temperature. First of all, I had to convert it into Fahrenheit for them, and there were a load of kids there from Texas, and they're going, "Oh, that's spring as far as we're concerned. So what are you whining about?"
I'm kind of with Texas for once. I'm with Tex. I hope he was called Tex, was he?
He's wearing a big Stetson, and so his surname was Ewing.
All right, Kira, I think we should point out to our listeners we're in slightly different places. You're in a hotel room in Liverpool, which might account for you sounding like you're actually on Mars. There's a sort of 3-second delay, which Guy might have to work out. And also, I'm not in my usual place because it's coming up to that time, Kieran, when Ali will be decamping to Edinburgh a week today, which means that the house is full of techies of various shapes and sizes, all with giant boots, all carrying mysterious bits of tools and kit around and pausing for cider. So I've been chucked out of the office, which turns out, Kieran, was never my office. I've just discovered it's always been a workroom come story space. My desk in the corner is not the office because it's not my name on the loan. So there you are. So the good news is that if Ali defaults, it won't be me. But I'm in a different part of the building. You're in a different part of the world. So I think with our grasp of technology, Kieran, we might be all right.
Just about.
It's Newsday, Kieran. There's some big news stories. And for once, we're going to end with some lifestyle stories. Well, it's about time that we took this in a hello direction. And of course, we have a big news story for our Patreons, one of whom, by the look of it, seems to be Boy George's brother. But we'll come to that in a moment. The big news story, Liverpool. Funny enough, we talked about this just last week, almost accidentally. But Liverpool have agreed an extension of their shirt sponsorship deal with Standard Chartered Bank for quite some time, and it's worth quite a lot of money.
Yes. Liverpool, I think it's fair to say Liverpool are an incredibly sexy brand at present in terms of the style of football. The Jurgen Klopp is a major asset for them. He's extended his contract. They're very popular in Asia. So that put them in a very strong negotiating position with regards to trying to extract further funds from Standard Chartered, who are based in Asia. And it looks as if the deal is £200 million over 4 years, plus some potential bonuses if they deliver on trophies. So that's a 25% increase as far as the previous deal is concerned. And if you think that Manchester United, by all accounts, have managed to get almost as much from their current deal in terms of team viewer compared to Chevrolet, I think it does show that, once again, Ed Woodward's famous comment that you don't need to win football matches to be commercially successful isn't necessarily true, because Liverpool are delivering in terms of trophies and they are extracting additional money. And Manchester United are not progressing at the same rate as before. By all accounts, Liverpool did speak to blockchain and crypto potential sponsors. Now, that could have been to try to shake Standard Chartered for a few more quid. We don't know. There was certainly caution from the likes of Spirit of Shankly, who are very much protective of the fan perspective in relation to Liverpool, but they've not gone down that route. And it's, I think it's always good if you've got a good working relationship with somebody to carry that on. And this relationship with Standard Chartered, I think it'll be 17 years at the end of this deal. So it does appear that there's mutual benefits for both parties.
Also, Kieran, I presume with the volatility of crypto, blockchain, whatever, most of those companies are not in a position to offer that much money over that length of time, are they?
I'm not so certain, because Chelsea apparently have signed a deal with Whalefin for their arm sleeve sponsor, which is worth 20 million. Manchester United and Manchester City both have crypto-based training shirt deals, which have come through. Manchester United signed theirs last season. City have just signed theirs for this season. And these are all 8-figure deals. They're in the 10 to 20 million pound bracket. But I think they tend to be, as you said, they tend to be a bit short term. They're normally a sort of a 2-year deal. By committing to 4 years, it does allow Liverpool to budget with a degree of certainty, and their owners, FSG, are very on the money when it comes to budgets and forecasts. So they will like it from a certainty perspective.
And in terms of the bonuses you talked about, Kieran, so if Liverpool were to win the Champions League next year, that means Standard Chartered shelling out another couple of million for that, presumably?
Yes, because it allows Standard Chartered to do some advertising next to the jug. And that's great, especially if Liverpool go on tour in that part of the globe, and they'll be able to bring the Champions League trophy with them, and the commercial partners will be able to smile and grasp the trophy and do all the things which you'd want to do. Yeah, these are the dreams that even sponsors do like that part of the game in terms of associating themselves with success, and they have to pay for the privilege.
Yeah. People will be having a photograph next to a trophy, Kieran. I'm not necessarily sure the insurance company will allow the trophy to be paraded around the Far East while people have photographs of it. Still on Merseyside, Everton made a goodwill gesture of more than £500,000 over the Bramley Moor project.
Yes. I think this is Everton being quite reasonable here, quite generous. The Everton and Liverpool Council have been in discussions over a period of time. Clearly, there are potential benefits for both parties in respect of moving to Bramley Moor. But it looks as if initially Everton said they would contribute towards the council's costs if the council assisted Everton in terms of providing some of the funding for the stadium. Subsequently, for whatever reasons, we don't know the full details. Subsequently, the council didn't deliver in terms of funding. Now, it could be that they saw it's too risky. It could be that the interest rates they were quoting Everton were too high. We don't know the full details. There has been some investigation up here by the Echo, who has, by all accounts, Liverpool Echo, who have managed to access some emails between senior people. And those emails appeared to indicate, well, there was no obligation on Everton to pay any money, given that the council didn't deliver on their side of the deal. But I think it looks like the council's costs were £841,000, which we jest about our silver tongue friends, but that's a couple of weeks' work at least, therefore the council was on the hook. But Everton have agreed to pay £502,000. I think there has been some form of investigation which doesn't necessarily reflect particularly well on the council. There has been accusations of a failure of governance, and we are quite keen on governance within the game. Local government is another area. If anybody ever reads Rotten Boroughs in Private Eye, it is quite alarming, the lack of governance in central government. And I'm not saying that has been the case here in Liverpool. But they've not necessarily come out of this with reputation glowing. So Everton have chipped in, and given the financial straits that Everton are presently occupying, it's quite a generous offer.
It does. I do read Private Eye, Kieran, but I'm ashamed to say if there's not a cartoon in it, I don't read it. But the print just seems a bit smaller in Rotten Borough somehow. I've got enough to worry about, Kieran, about the governance of the council in Dorset to be perfectly honest. You mentioned fans groups earlier, Kieran, in the spirit of Shankly, a wonderful Liverpool fan group. A Brentford fan group have been influential in stopping an increase on some ticket prices for under 17s.
Yes, and we've spoken before about Brentford being one of the pioneers of the golden share relationship between football clubs and a fan base. And we've spoken to Brentford, and that relationship works quite well because it does provide a structured dialogue between parties, and we all know as fans that sometimes when I get a bee in my bonnet about something, perhaps I say things which, on retrospect, I could have communicated in a more measured way. So this is I think it's called BIAS or BISA, the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters or something like that, and they do have these regular meetings with the club. And one of the issues has been in relation to ticket prices going forwards. And certainly, if you look at some other clubs in London, and I'm looking at you here, Fulham, by the way, in terms of some of the outrageous prices which they're proposing to charge for fans on a match ticket basis, that Brentford have listened, and they have reduced the prices for younger fans, because if you're between the ages of 10 and 17, where do you get your money from? You're relying on pocket money. Yes, you might have a part-time job, but the chances are, I remember when I had a part-time job, that meant a lot of the time I couldn't go to the football, so it was counterproductive.
To be fair, Kieran, your part-time job was with a local gangster, so it was slightly different.
It wasn't a gangster. He was a money collector, and
with menaces,
a money collector with menaces, which is slightly different. But if you paid him, he was very friendly.
Oh yeah, if you paid him, yeah.
Which is it's no different to the VAT man. If I pay the VAT man and with a smile and the right amounts on the right dates, it's not a problem. So Uncle Terry just.
I'm going to take issue with that, Kieran, because I've had occasional run-ins with the VAT people in the past, and in none of the letters that they sent me was there a threat to break my kneecaps if I didn't start paying up, to be perfectly honest. Fulham, obviously, are not far from Brentford. I believe Fulham are the first £100 matchday ticket we were talking about earlier. Is that right?
It looks like that. I mean, they will say it's Liverpool that they are hosting. It's a small number of tickets. And they've got Alexander Mitrovic's brand new contract that he signed last August to fund somehow. But this does appear to be a strange decision made at Fulham, because Shahid Khan is independently wealthy of the club. He has put a huge amount of money in. Nobody's denying that. I think he's still talking about buying Wembley Stadium at some point, but I suspect the FA will push back on that. But in terms of how to make friends and influence people, it's a pretty crass way to go about things, because I normally talk to people about what we refer to as marginal revenue. How much extra money are you going to get from charging £100 compared to 65? Because remember, these are match day tickets as opposed to season tickets, and it's not going to be a huge amount, but it is generating a lot of ill will from the Fulham fan base towards the club at a time when they've just been promoted, and you think that everybody would be salivating at the prospect of a new Premier League season.
So hats off to Brentford then, because they really wouldn't have raised much money by increasing ticket prices by a fiver for under 17s. But the fact that they've decided to reverse that decision after discussion with the fans reflects well on the club and the fans, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's a sign of a progressive board who have a good relationship and have listened. And we've given them praise before because they've decided not to renew the home shirt this season. Like you say, football shirts should last you 2 seasons. So, we all get suckered in by the cosmetic differences kits from season to season, and then you've got the pester power from kids to. It's not just the one kit. It's not just the two. Sometimes you've got all of the, especially if the elite clubs are concerned, they're changing all three kits. So fair play to Brentford for both of these actions.
Yeah, I have to say I love the new Palace kit. You remember, for men of a certain age, you remember rhubarb and custard? Not the food, the
Certainly
cartoon.
do.
You remember the cartoon with the wobbly lines? That's what our new kit is like. It's great. I'm just trying to persuade the club to play the theme tune for Rhubarb and Custard when they come out on the first day. So rather than Glad All Over, we'll have da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Now, Kieran, you and I are football fans, and we talk a lot on the pod about the cost of being a football fan. For the away fans on the first day of the EFL season, are going to be spending a lot more money to get to their games because the country is going to be stopped by rail strikes again.
Yes, it is, and this is sort of football fans here are the indirect victims of an industrial dispute, and it's not for us to take sides on the issue, but it looks as if I think 33 games. In the EFL, which is kicking off, and it's going to coincide with the strike. Going to matches by train is a fantastic experience, because you see those faces that you've not seen for 3 months, especially on that first day of the season, and let's suppose we're at an age now where we check that all of the faces are still there, because we're not necessarily in the greatest of health, and it's that. Who's opening the first can, and then you get the card school going, and then you start having that chat, and then songs may be sung, and it's a wonderful experience, especially if it's done in the right humour, and that's not going to be taking place. We've got. We've got increased fuel prices as an alternative, and I know the Prime Minister is keen to move to imperial measures, as a sign of taking back control. So, given that petrol is now £9 a gallon, that makes it a very expensive to use cars, and also it's not particularly efficient from an environmental point of view. A lot of fans are going to have to go and fork out extra, and then you've got who's going to be the poor sod who gets volunteered to drive the car to that first match of the season when everybody else wants to get tanked up. There might be coaches available. There might be a few more coaches available, but it's never quite the same on a coach as it is on the train, in my experience.
Yeah, it always seems a bit middle class on the coach, I have to say. So I remember it's the sort of thing that supporters club members do is get the coach. I got round there. I never get chosen to be the designated driver because I decided not to learn to drive. I had the foresight at an early age to realise that was a problem. Also, I love the. I hear what you say, Kieran, about that first away game of the season on the train, but normally about halfway through you realise, there's a reason why I haven't seen some of these people for 3 months.
Yes.
I suppose one consolation for fans who might not be able to get to away games on the first day of the season is that live streaming of matches is currently a big topic for debate amongst EFL clubs.
Yes, I think this is a really intriguing topic, and our friend Andy Holt has been on social media. I think it's fair to say he's not happy with the decision which has been made, and as far as EFL clubs are concerned, a vote's been made, and I think this is really impacts upon clubs in League 1 and 2 because they get very little money. We talk about the greed of the Premier League, or some people talk about the greed of the Premier League in respect of the distribution of TV money, but don't think we're all in it together in the EFL, because the clubs in the Championship take 80% of the total value of the deal. Wow. If it's in League 1, it's 12%, and in League 2, it's 8%. So the clubs in the Championship are getting 10 times the amount of money as the clubs in League 2.
Yeah.
So those clubs in the lower league, they're not making much money from the regular TV deal. And what has happened is that one of the features that we saw during lockdown was iFollow, and we said at the time, initially the quality of what you were seeing was pretty ropey. But fair play to all of the parties involved, and you've got to give credit to the broadcasters, to the clubs, to the EFL. They've all made an attempt to address that, and from what I hear from people that use iFollow, it is working a lot better. So for people not familiar with how it works, is you pay £10 for a match pass, and that allows you to stream to your device. We don't necessarily consume it on television, and you can effectively watch the match live. The deal or the proposal that's been agreed is now that the club that sells the tickets or sells the passes appears to be the one which is going to be keeping the money. And this means that some clubs in League One are bigger than others. There's no doubt about that. And for clubs who would normally bring a lot of fans to an away game, will all of those fans still go? We're not certain about that. But if those fans then choose to buy the match using a pass, they're going to buy it from Bolton instead of Accrington if the match is taking place at Accrington's ground. And I think this forms the basis of Andy Holt's concerns. And I think that has merit. I think that it's not within the wit of man to come to some form of profit share arrangement which doesn't accentuate the differences between rich and poor. And I do think that this is certainly something that the clubs higher up the food chain are monitoring as well. And one of the reasons potentially why the Todd Bowley Group have acquired Chelsea for what appears to be too high a price, if you look at sort of any standard valuation metrics, is they see the value of streaming, and they know that if they can sell direct to Chelsea's fan base, they can generate a lot of money. Now, Chelsea already make a lot more money than the likes of Brighton or Palace or the other. We know where we are in the food chain. But if that then goes into the Premier League as well and into the Championship, it's really going to amplify the gaps between the haves and the have-nots. And here I think perhaps a little bit of caution should be taken place, because Bolton and Portsmouth and clubs like that who are very keen to keep all of the money themselves, they are big fish in a League One pond. They're not necessarily will be the same big fish when they get promoted to the Championship. So you've got to be a little bit careful about what you wish for here. So streaming is as an alternative to traditional broadcasting. I think there's a case for saying, perhaps the clubs in League One and Two, would they be better off trying to sign an overall broadcasting deal independently of the Championship? And I know that has been discussed amongst club owners and amongst executives. But we are moving in changing times in terms of the way that we consume broadcasting. And this proposal, streaming, it makes sense. You could also argue it cuts out the middleman in the sense that you're not having to go via a traditional broadcaster. And that's why it's not really taking place in the Championship, because they already get most of the money from Sky. But I think if it's going to be the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, that takes away some of that romance, which we legacy fans genuinely feel is part of the fabric of the game.
So forgive me, Kieran, if Accrington, if there's a League One game that's actually one of the few that Sky show on TV, does streaming still happen if it's live as part of the broadcast deal?
No. I mean, there would be. I think Sky, under the terms of the deal, they are allowed to have a blackout in respect of those matches. Right. So you'd have to watch those via Sky. But if you think about it, if you've got a Sky subscription, you've already effectively paid for the match. So why pay for Why pay for a streaming pass? And also the other thing with streaming is that you tend to get the match about 90 seconds after it's been shown live on TV because of the nature of the streaming. So I think those particular matches would be excluded, and that's why it's less of an issue in the Championship, because the vast majority of the matches which are shown under the EFL's TV deal with Sky tend to be Championship matches, because there are bigger teams in that division, and clearly the race to get into the Premier League is something which is quite seductive from a broadcaster's perspective as well.
So the next time we hear a Championship club owner moaning about the unfair distribution of money in the game, we need to remind them that they are taking 80% of this streaming deal as opposed to 8% for League Two clubs, which is not good, is it? Under the headline "Delayed Closure of Stable Door," we learn that Wembley Stadium is getting a £3 million security revamp to prevent a repeat of the chaos at the Euro final.
Yes, I think you described it very succinctly. But if we go back to what happened last year, I knew what was going to happen in advance.
So
you knew what was going to happen in advance, because we had a chat ourselves after we'd recorded one of the podcasts. When England got to the final, and therefore you've got to ask, if we know it's going to take place, and we're just two old geezers, why were the authorities so poorly prepared? So I think under these proposals, it is going to be more difficult for people to break through the barriers. I think there's going to be better training of staff, but I'll be honest. If I'm on minimum wage, I'm not going to put up too much of I'm not going to put up too much resistance against a couple of coked up idiots who are trying to make my life difficult and trying to break through a door which I'm supposedly there to defend. So I think the FA has to take responsibility here. You've got to ask why was the reaction in terms of security so poor? It's something which appears to be airbrushed out of history, simply because we had a full return to fans last season, and there was quite a lot of indignation when England had to play some games under restricted circumstances following what happened at the final last year.
Yeah, and if you read the full report into what happened as well, the police were warning the FA that from about 10:15 in the morning that crowds were building, and that most of them didn't look like people who had tickets. So this was a situation that no one comes out with any credit. And like you say, they should really have predicted that was going to happen. But that's easy for us to say, and hopefully it won't happen again. And also we saw last week as well, Kieran, that the French authorities finally admitting that they made everything up about the Champions League final, which is good news for the Liverpool fans who are still under somewhat of a cloud because of the disgraceful accusations made by the French police and the French local government.
Yeah, I mean, that was a classic case of if somebody's got a reputation, they become a convenient excuse and a convenient target. What's happened in respect of Liverpool fans before, we saw the accusations made at Hillsborough, which were a pack of lies from both the police authorities. The government at the time was quite happy to jump in, and the and the newspaper. I'm sitting here in Liverpool. I won't even give it the credibility of naming it, purely to reinforce prejudice, and that prejudice still exists, and that's one of the tragedies of modern football.
Is crotch discomfort hurting your game? Fear no more. The kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there. Sleek, soft, comfortable, flexible. The brand new Boxers 2.0 from Manscaped take your little fellas to the royal ball throne. We think it's time you invest in your family jewels. So let your bulge breathe and get 20% off and free shipping with the code PriceOfFootball at manscaped.com. That's Price of Football in big letters for your little fellas at manscaped.com.
Absolutely. And the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 is the best electric trimmer for below-the-waist grooming. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce those grooming accidents that none of us want, thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. It's also waterproof, so you can use it in the shower, and it's got a 400K LED spotlight for a more precise shave, so you can check what you're cutting.
And we know for a fact that James Bond manscapes. So if you want to join the governor, get 20% off and free shipping with the code PriceOfFootball at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code PriceOfFootball. Up your crotch game, because once the Boxers 2.0 touch your sack, you will never go back.
Our next story is an interesting one, Kieran. There's an investigation into wage fixing amongst freelancers like camera operators who work for the big sports broadcasters. And I have to say, knowing quite a few of them, North Face and Timberland don't come cheap. So camera crew have got to get their money from somewhere, is what I'm saying.
They do. And what we have, I think this is more of a price of broadcasting rather than a price of football issue, because it's not just applying to those camera crews that are working in football matches themselves, but the broadcasters effectively outsource an awful lot of responsibility in terms of what happens on match day. They don't formally employ camera crews themselves. They encourage the individuals to set themselves up as limited companies, or alternatively to become freelancers and register on that basis with HMRC. I think the discomfort here is that the power is very much in the hands of the broadcasters. And whilst there's no explicit evidence that they are working in concert, it does appear to be that there is a going rate and everybody sticks to it, which could be accusations of some form of cartel. So, this is a story that we did spot because, you and I both know camera crews in various forms of, quite a few of them pop up in my garden, for example, and the Baroness makes them cups of tea and Marmite and cheese loaf, of course. So you do get talking to them, and it appears to be a grumble that they've not had pay rises for a significant amount of time, although I don't think that they're alone in that in terms of people that work in the media.
Yeah, that's true. The problem for sports broadcasters is that there's more sport than camera crew, to be perfectly honest. Especially you look at the last day of the season when Sky are covering every game. Basically, they've got a camera everywhere. There aren't that many proper old school camera operators left, which is why you get a lot of youngsters who are given basically cameras that are fancy mobile phones, essentially, which really annoys the ones who have been through the proper training. But it's a strange system because there's like a couple of big agents whose job solely is to supply a camera crew for football games, and of course the 5 or 6 really experienced camera operators are the ones that are first on the rank. Tend to get all the big difficult games. It's a very interesting world. This is a story. I think we need to invite somebody on to have a look at this in some detail, Kieran, to be honest. We've got our big style news stories coming up. But before that, Shakhtar Donetsk are seeking 50 million euros worth of damages from FIFA over lost transfer fees.
Yes, and the reason for this is that FIFA said to players that because of the invasion of Ukraine by Putin and the destruction that has subsequently taken place. Clearly, football is not taking place. FIFA has effectively said to individual players, you can rip up your contracts, you can walk away from the clubs.
Yeah.
But from the club's point of view, these players are valuable inventory. So in the case of Shakhtar Donetsk, they say, well, hold on, yeah, we acknowledge that we can't play football because we've got we've got a lunatic regime destroying our country. At the same time, we've lost out on an individual basis as a club, and Shakhtar Donetsk, yeah, there are regular features in the Champions League and other UEFA competitions, and it's cost them a lot of money to build up their squad. And the players have been able to walk away for nothing. So, from the club's point of view, we've paid fees to train these players. We've paid fees to buy the players in the first place, and now we're the people who are being screwed over as a result of this FIFA decision. FIFA is a wealthy organisation, as we know. It did drag its heels in relation to banning Russia from competition, but eventually it did get round to doing the right thing. Although, whenever you see pictures of Infantino and Putin historically, they all seem to be smiling at each other. So, where do we go from here? It's going to be a slow and laborious process. If it does go to court, then we know who the winners are going to be, and it's going to be neither FIFA nor Shakhtar Donetsk, and it's going to be a very long and drawn out process. So, you would hope that FIFA would take into consideration what's happened and perhaps set aside some monies, and perhaps UEFA should be doing this as well, in respect of the complications which have arisen in UEFA following the invasion.
Yeah, to be fair to Infantino, Kieran, I think if I was unlucky enough to ever meet Putin, I'd probably smile for the length of the time I was in the room, until such time as I could get out of it. I'm amazed, Kieran, when this story first happened, when we realised that UEFA had said to these Ukrainian players that they could tear up their contracts and move to other clubs, which is the right decision to make. I assumed, I think along with everybody else, that there would be a suitable amount of compensation involved to Shakhtar Donetsk. Because, as you say, UEFA are a very wealthy organisation, and it seems obvious that this would financially impact on them as a club, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah, and there's the cost of the restoration costs in respect of Ukraine are going to run into tens, if not hundreds of billions of pounds. And football is we've always said football is a small industry with a big voice, but football is also a unifying and a uniting force. And, we're all hoping the sooner that this invasion ends, the better for all concerned. But one thing that people will be able to rally around, and if you talk to anybody, I remember, my Uncle Tommy, who was a very good footballer. He was a bit older than my old man, and he was a big football fan. And he said, after the war, at least we had football to go back to, and it was, I think we got a bit of a nostalgic viewpoint, being baby boomers, me and you, in terms of the war ended and everybody was happy. It was horrible. I remember talking to my old man. My old man was, he was evacuated out of London, and he was effectively traded between people, during the Second World War when he was apart from his own family. It was horrendous, some of the stories you used to hear, and the post-war position. But football was one thing which at least gave people something to rally around in what was really hard times. And this is going to be exactly the same as far as Ukraine is concerned. And if the clubs themselves are in danger of going out of business because they've not got any players and they've got no finance, then that's going to be another negative, and it's going to make what's going to be a hard and slow slog even more painful.
Yeah, this is a turn I didn't think this pod would ever take, but my dad, God rest him, was evacuated twice, one of which he loved and one of which was a horrible experience. But football wasn't his saviour. He seemed to get over the wall by getting off with half the women in Carshalton during the 50s. That seemed to be Dad's way of dealing with things. He was. I could say that now, though him and my mother have gone. This is before he was married, of course, but it does seem to have got quite the swathe through the teddy girl population of southwest London. Kieran, we deal with the serious stories on this pod, but every now and again there comes a story so deep, so dark, that you feel that you should perhaps be getting Robert Peston in to do with it rather than lightweight like me. And this one is this is my favourite story of the year. An FC Halifax player has downed boots, up sticks, and gone into Love Island to fulfil what he says is a lifelong ambition. I imagine, Kieran, he won't be getting paid by the club for the duration of his time in the whatever they call it, the villa or whatever.
Yes, yeah, and it's not the villa in Birmingham either. So yeah,
no, not that villa. No, not the villa. The Love Island villa. I don't know they call it. I don't watch it.
That's right.
Jeez. My Love Island days are long gone.
I think it's fair to say a fairly sniffy tweet from FC Halifax on both their Facebook page and Twitter to say that he's gone. He's decided that he's going to prioritise fame and fortune. And the matter will be dealt with upon his return, whatever that will be. I think he's 27. So, which I suspect is quite old by Love Island standards. I go hands up. I have no idea what it's involved. The Baroness watches it, and she's on various WhatsApp groups talking to people about it. And then I will be looking at a spreadsheet in the same room, and she will just say, "Well, have you just heard what Bethany said to George about Romeo?" And I said, I'm not trying to be elitist here. I don't know and I don't care because I'm not the target demographic.
I have to say, Ed watches it. My son, the left-wing five-round comedian, he watches it purely, he says, for sociological reasons. But I can tell you, if this player is 27, I guarantee his nickname will be Grandad from the minute he gets in. Yes. I mean, what does the club do here, Keir? I mean, clearly, will they keep paying him while he's away?
Probably not. But remember, if he's non-league FC Halifax, he won't necessarily be a full-time employee. Yeah. He could have a part-time contract, and certainly from what I know about people working in social media, is that everybody that goes on to Love Island, and this isn't the price of Love Island, whilst I think the people watching it tend to believe it's quite spontaneous, they've already signed up with not talent agencies, but they already signed up with social media organisations, and they will have signed contracts to promote clothing brands and other lifestyle products, and it is very lucrative. So he will potentially earn a lot more money from this, especially if he's in there for a long period of time. So you can see why, from his perspective, from both a social experiment point of view, but a financial one, he could certainly fill his boots from switching from football to ITV2.
I'm not sure filling his boots is the right expression in the circumstances, Kieran. He can't be out there that long because it's nearly finished, I believe. But just no matter how much money he wins, just imagine the stick he's going to get back in that dressing room. Really, there's a long way from Love Island to away at Port Vale on a Wednesday. He's going to get some stick. Finally, Kieran, on lifestyle stories, news emerging that details of Chris Kirchner's lifestyle that may explain why he didn't have the money to buy Derby in the end. He seems to have got through an awful lot of money on things like helicopters and shark hunts for a man who's not been paying the wages of his company for quite some time.
Yes, this is a really good article in Forbes magazine, who have been talking to, I think, executives, talking to employees, talking to people who've been impacted by Chris Kirchner. And I don't know how many people will have watched. There's a fantastic documentary on Sky about Alan Stanford. I think it's the man who bought cricket.
Yeah,
and even if you're not interested.
Yeah.
Even if you're not interested in cricket, watch it. In terms of this is how to pull the wool over people's eyes. Helicopter, loads of £5 notes in big stacks, being charming and persuasive. And Alan Stanford effectively conned the whole of cricket. And it looks as if Chris Kirchner has not only conned the EFL Quantum R, a proportion of the Derby fan base at the time, though I think if you talk to Derby fans, it is very much we dodged a bullet in respect of Chris Kirchner, but also some fairly senior financial institutions who bought into his company. One of the accusations in the Forbes report was that Chris Kirchner said that revenues in 2021 were £30 million. Upon further investigation, it was closer to £1 million.
Yeah.
And it looks as if he was preparing financial returns rather than the people in the finance department. And if this is the case, there's a conflict of interest in terms of some of this. So he's not coming out of this particularly well. I think you've got to give credit to, and this is somebody, I'll be honest, somebody who I've been critical of historically, Peter Ridsdale at Preston, who they had discussions with Chris Kirchner, and we got a call from Peter Ridsdale and said we just didn't think they had the money, and that's why as far as we were concerned, we didn't want anything more to do with him. And then all of a sudden he came back to Derby, so it does look as if Derby County are in safer, and people might say, well, perhaps we're in boring hands, but sometimes it's better to be dealing with somebody who's a bit quieter, a bit more measured, than somebody who is glamorous and is promising to solve all the problems by spending money that they don't have.
Yeah, I think sensible rather than lunatic. I think most Derby fans would go for that, Kieran. It's a timely way to end the pod, Kieran, because it's just minutes before England kick off against Spain in the quarterfinal of the Euros. Unfortunately, you and I will both miss it because we inadvertently agreed to guest on somebody else's podcast, because that's the sort of givers that we are, Kieran. Good luck to the Lionesses tonight. It's been splendid so far. Thank you to everyone who's donated to the pod via our Patreon page, including Colin Francis, David Hartrick, good old Harch, Paul Stedman, Kevin O'Dowd. Now, I do you think that might be Boy George's brother? Well, no, George O'Dowd is... George O'Dowd is Boy George. Kevin O'Dowd is his brother, who I know.
Oh, wow.
So I would put that on the poster. Boy George's brother listens to this, but if it's not Boy George's brother, thank you anyway. Also, Dan Octon, Ben Adams, Mark Loveday, and Chris Todd. If you'd like to make a small monthly contribution to the pod, please go to patreon.com. That's drawing attention to the mistake, isn't it, Kieran? We're going blah, 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 blah. Please go to patreon.com/priceoffootball. And the reason I'm nervous, Kieran, is because I've got news. I've got news for the Patreons. We've been promising it for weeks. If you are one of our Patreon subscribers and you're paying £3 or £5 a month, you should have received a message from us this week about how you can subscribe to the ad-free version of the pod. That's right. I don't know how the finances work, but you can get an ad-free version of the pod if you're an existing Patreon subscriber paying £3 or £5 a month, and any new Patreon subscribers who go for £3 or £5 a month can also dodge the adverts as well, although I believe there's not enough money in the world to avoid our sponsorship announcements at the start of the pod. But finally, Kieran, we're giving some value to our patrons. This pod will always be free to air, but if you want to bung us £3 a month or £5 a month, then you can miss out on the adverts if you so wish. And if you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com, and we can finally doubly underline our confirmation that our next live show will be taking place at Home Park, the home of Plymouth Argyle, of course, on Tuesday the 27th of September. Tickets are now available for the Plymouth Argyle website, and they are genuinely selling fast. So get yours soon, and we look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thank you for everybody at Patreon for continuing to support us. We genuinely appreciate it, and we try to give plenty of value back in terms of the content of the show. That's one way of supporting the show. Another way is to give a review using your podcast app. And if you could give us 5 stars, by all accounts, according to Producer Guy, it helps us in terms of our show averages. It helps us in the charts, and we're for a niche show, we do pretty well in the charts. And by all accounts, it's the number of stars that matter, not the comments. So you could say that you would rather have the show presented by Joanna Lumley and Jimmy Percy of Sham 69, and it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to me or Kevin. And all I can say is that I'd rather spend my evening in the company of Joanna Lumley, because having spent a couple of evenings at Sham 69 concerts in my youth, I think it's fair to say that the audience there were not angels with dirty faces. It was 2 of the scariest nights of my life, and I'm just happy that I'm still alive.
I can imagine. Yeah. Although, to be fair, Joanna Lumley and Jimmy Percy could bond over their respective modelling careers. Jimmy Percy did become the most unlikely male model of his generation. I never quite got there. I didn't like having beer splashed over me, let alone spit, to be perfectly honest. I was always way at the back of those gigs, unlike you mosh pitting down the front. Bye, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.